All right. Now we just want to coming back to the same data, but look at it in a different way. This is comparing. Okay, so we're using 4 years of high school as our comparison group. Okay, so that's the group we're comparing to, and we want to compare how do people compare to this 4 years of high school. So that's what you see. 4 years of high school is 100%. So we can see a couple of things. One, the punishment for not graduating high school has gotten bigger. Okay, so some of this data wasn't shown in the other graph. So if you don't graduate high school, you make even less than before. And remember, the high school numbers went down. So the high school number is actually lower than it was in 1974. But the gap between high school and not high school is even bigger. Okay, so the back in 1974, for example, the average woman who didn't finish high school was making 85% of what a high school grad could make, but now it's about 75%. Okay, so this gap has gotten bigger. There's not much change for some college, so associates, degrees and such is not much change. Okay, there's not much change going on here. The big one is here. The return to education is bigger. Okay, the return to education is larger than it was before. And this is true even though we have more college grads than we used to. So this is true. Now it's two reasons why it's bigger. One reason it's bigger is because high school grads make less than they did before. The shift to the skill economy has lowered their wages. The other reason it's bigger, though, is that actually wages have grown in the upper end. We saw that for men, they grew a little bit, partly because they were already quite high, and for women, they grew quite a lot. So wages have grown at the upper end of this at this distribution, and so the gain from finishing college is bigger than before. Okay, the gain from finishing college is quite a bit bigger than before. Let's look at this. By going to college, men and women are getting almost double of what they would if they didn't go to college. Their earnings are almost double than they would have been. We can look at this. This is actual real earnings, not compared to high school, but compared to themselves. And so we can see a few things. One of the things that's kind of interesting is we see for men, their earnings have actually declined. But part of the reason they declined is because they were so high before, and those specific sectors, especially high-paying union factory jobs, have majorly declined. So men who didn't finish high school, their earnings have declined 16%. Men who finished high school, earnings have declined 11%. The other thing that I should mention here is not just sectoral decline. It's also the men in this group are a little different than the men in this group were in 1974. If you remember back to the education statistics, actually, I'm not sure if I showed you them before. Back in 1974, it was pretty common to have high school only, or even less than high school. There was a lot of men in this group, right? And it didn't necessarily mean much. Just mean people hadn't gone very far in school. And so now this group has gotten small. So there's very few men that are not finishing high school. And so this group has gotten small, and the only group for men that has gone up is men with college. So actually earnings for 4 years or more, and this is even more so for people with master's degrees and professional degrees, they're 20% higher than in 1974. So for men, there's been this big shift. Men on the lower end of the education distribution saw their wages fall in real terms. That means they're actually earning less than the equivalent man was earning in the 1970s. But for men on the upper end of the education distribution, this upper about third, they're making 20% more than they used to. They're doing better than the previous generation. Okay, but for women, the situation is totally different. Everybody is doing better. Okay, but high school dropouts are just doing very slightly better. Okay, but everyone else is doing better, and especially at the top, the college-educated women, they're making almost 50% more than their counterparts would have been making in 1974. So for women, we see this really big gain, and for men, not so much. One of the reasons this is affecting women more, in terms of their wages are going up more, is more experience. So by 2015, the average woman who's working has lots and lots of experience of working and has probably worked most of her adult life, whereas back in 1974 that wouldn't have been true. So part of the reason the wages were lower back in 1974 for women was partly less experience. Then on the upper end of the spectrum, the 4 or more years of college, we also, when we look at the majors, we find more and more women are shifting into majors which are fairly high paying, into more technical fields, into more professional jobs. We haven't shown it yet, but we'll see later, into professions like dentistry, pharmacy, medicine, etc. So this is definitely going to increase those earnings as people change, even though they already had college before, as they become more likely to choose these higher paying fields. But yeah, we see this shift, and this shift has been major effects.